a lot of people associate innovation with like disruption and this whole thing. It's not about disruption. It's literally about moving this old world to the side and creating an entirely new way. And relationships are at the forefront of that.
Welcome to SheEO.World, a podcast about redesigning the world. I'm your host, Vicki Saunders. In each episode, you'll hear from SheEO venture founders, women who are working on the world's to-do list. These innovative business leaders are solving some of the major challenges of our times. Please sit back and be prepared to be inspired. Good morning, Melina. So good to have you here today.
Oh, good morning, Vicki. So glad to be here today.
We had an incredible conversation recently about, not on a podcast, and decided in the middle of it, we have to do a podcast of your journey as an activator and how you came in and all of the stuff you're doing to help ventures. And so I wanted to just share with the community some of the different journeys that activators are on, because we don't have a set path, right, of what it means to be an activator.
At all. And I think that's one of the biggest surprises when I joined SheEO. My first year was, so I'm a third-time activator, really excited for all that's to come, especially in the coming weeks, being based in Canada. And mainly, I discovered right away that it wasn't really about being like with other like-minded people. It's nothing about, having similar perspectives at all. It's actually very different minds coming together. So I think off the bat, just in kind of speaking about all of the different ventures, yeah, I mean, there's probably every industry, every business that I could have ever even imagined, or sorry, never could have even imagined working with. But yeah, so the journey is one of, I guess, curiosity to start with, and wanting to know how women do things, or women, people identifying as women do things differently. Having historically worked in a really, in the fashion industry, which is unfortunately an industry that's largely, I think, been built on exploitation of natural resources, of people, of relationships. And so coming from that, really just wanting to see something different. And I couldn't have been more happy to see how different SheEOs operate.
Can I just start? So let's ask a little question about, so tell me a little bit about, your background. So you've been in fashion for a long time. So tell us a little bit about that, and then how you heard SheEO, and then what made you walk in the door.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have the weirdest background ever.
Oh, good. Well, yeah, we have a lot of weird backgrounds, all of us.
Yeah. I'm a teacher. I'm trained as a teacher originally, a long time ago. So teacher, wasn't happy. I felt that, in teaching it was really rewarding, but I didn't feel like I had a lot to contribute. Having sort of started that part in I was young at the time. And so I had a friend who was a designer, Canadian designer. And he said, I think this isn't for you. Like, you're a really creative person, and we spent a lot of hours speaking with one another about fashion and design. And I just wound up hanging out at his studio after work. So I would go there, show up. He'd give me some swatches to cut, and was very kind to just sort of sit and chat, and eventually asked me to start working for him. And that's how I made the switch. I left teaching and started working pretty well for free, just kind of showing up and doing whatever had to be done. And then slowly sort of learning the guts of the business. And that's really where it was my first exposure to an entrepreneurial mindset. And then over the course of 4 years, I wound up sort of running that business. We were doing extremely well. And then I switched into sort of the big fashion world with an international label. So I've learned a lot, and that was about 10 years ago now. Yeah. So, and then in terms of SheEO, just having seen so much in the industry. So for example, more so when I was working specifically with this Canadian designer, how much control big retail has over these small brands. And to the point where, you know, so you work so hard to develop a seasonal collection and a beautiful offering of products, and all of the creativity in the world goes into it. And you put everything you have, and then sort of the retailers come in and start picking it apart and either buying it in a way that is incredibly small, so that, you know, you can barely produce what you need to pay your people and get by for the season, or they'll buy it incredibly large, and then you'll scale massively. And what would happen, and what did happen many times to many Canadian designers, is that you would scale up so quickly, and then the retailer would drop you a season in, saying, you know, your sell-through is not high enough, or whatever the reason that they come up with is. So just seeing how a bit of the carelessness in that, and certainly the monopolies that control the retail industry is a bit scary. So having experienced all of this, looking for a different way of doing business. And actually my husband initially found SheEO, and he was like, oh, there's this really cool group. It's like this startup group, and you should really consider joining. And I looked into it a little bit further, and I did. And yeah, and year one was purely observation. What I really noticed off the bat about SheEO was that your meetings are phenomenal. They're run so efficiently, and I'd never seen something like that before in my life.
Yeah.
So I really, really enjoyed. I really enjoyed being part of the meetings, and just seeing all of these people coming together on these, working on these amazing, you know, United Nations SDGs is really cool. So, and then what happens is you can participate as much or as little as you want. And so year one was probably just, again, observation, but then really getting to know the founders and wanting to help in any way that I could with my skill set and experience. So it wound up sort of being, I was channeled into retail and sort of helping out the ventures with navigating this, you know, sort of crazy landscape that we're in. Yeah. And yeah, tell me.
No. So, okay. So you basically looked at how could I take my skills?
Yeah.
And plug them in, like, and experience to the ventures. And so how did you do that? Like, did you just reach out to the ventures, or what's the story behind that?
Oh, okay. Well, my gosh, I guess it really started on, I didn't even really know how passionately I would become about so many of the ventures. And just when you really at a human level see these ventures open up their business to you entirely, and sort of the transparency that comes with that, and you're able to look in and see exactly where you can help. So it's not just watching, you know, these businesses kind of take shape. It's actually them opening themselves up to you. And so it becomes this really beautiful relationship. More so I noticed with the impact of the pandemic, starting with those venture calls every week. So really that's when it started flowing pretty well for me. And just sort of connecting with anyone you have I sort of start with a natural interest in the business itself.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily, I've actually spoken with a few young sort of tech women who want to become SheEO members, but are a little bit worried about, you know, the expectation of them as like natural sort of introverts who prefer to kind of sit quietly on meetings and are worried that they won't say the right thing or aren't in the right spot. But it's not like that at all. You can really channel, like I did, sort of my focus and my skill set to help as much as I could. You can be an observer. You can, you know, focus really on the business development side, on the investment side. If you're also looking for for wonderful companies to invest in. I think that's one of the best hidden secrets about SheEO is that you have this collection of wonderful companies that are doing, the best work in the world. And you're just able to watch them grow and follow along and support through funding. And so, yeah, there's so many different angles that you can be involved in.
So
Yeah.
let's get specific.
Sure.
So like, tell me a story, or like pick your favorite, which comes up for you first, and tell us the process.
Oh my gosh, they're all my favorite.
Yeah.
So with NADA, that was really, again, with the pandemic, wonderful founders going through the worst time imaginable, a business that's not prepared to completely, go online. So all it is was literally a contact. I know someone who can get you online, a company, Interad, who can get you online quickly. Here, please meet with them. So that was the NADA story.
And that was huge, right?
And that was huge for them.
Because literally they had closed their doors.
Yeah.
I mean, they closed their doors because their bulk zero waste grocery store in Vancouver,
right.
And they were going to have no revenue. And I know you just say, oh, it's just a contact. But literally, this is the amazing thing that happens at SheEO. You hear a story and then you think, oh my God, I know someone who can help. And then Interad right in and created a whole online store and shifted her whole business from retail to e-com in a few months and changed her whole trajectory.
Totally.
With one intro. Like, that's so powerful, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're trying to do the exact same, or not the same, but in her industry for Satya as well. Patrice, she has a product that really deserves to be at the forefront of beauty. It should be in everyone's purse. I was speaking with Patrice last night and just saying how, every night I use Satya as like a face mask. It's so hydrating. You put it on and you kind of bake all night in this really beautiful way and wake up with glowing skin. And so we're talking about going after, Sephora and all of these big beauty companies together so that she can really have the product placement that she needs.
This is so amazing because Patrice started by creating a cream for her daughter's extreme eczema.
Right.
Eczema is how others pronounce it. And it ended up, people started to use it for all kinds of different things. And for you, right, this face mask, Jen, for cheekbone beauty, uses it as like, she puts it on her skin first before she puts on makeup.
As a base, as like a primer. Yeah.
As a primer. Those are the words I don't use makeup. So
no, it's okay.
And
neither do I really. Yeah.
But this is what the community can start to do to your business when you're out in deeper relationship with your customers. They see business opportunities for you, right? And that's, I think, what happens with the activator community is you're literally walking into a completely different world of possibilities.
Oh, absolutely.
And then for all of us to be connected with entrepreneurs, which we haven't normally been, right?
Never.
To be in that relationship and see how we can co-create things. So those are great examples.
Yeah, totally. And then what's also amazing to see is how all of the ventures work with one another. It's just that for me is so totally beautiful how like B with the Linker is working with Farm from a Box and is working. So as a venture, I've actually reached out to a few companies in the Toronto area, very small fashion companies. I'm like, oh, you need to, that are sustainably driven and women owned. And I'm like, you have to apply. You have until November 2nd. It's the easiest thing to do, such a simple process. But then from the activator perspective, as crazy as fashion is, there's a ton of young people who want to get involved in it. It's still so trendy to want to get involved in. So every week I have someone's sister, someone's cousin, someone who wants to speak with me who's super young and wants to get into the industry and wants to know what to do. And the first thing I recommend is, better than any sort of, business program or MBA or any crazy thing like that, activate with SheEO. Because the experience that you gain from that in working, you actually get to work on these businesses. You actually get to develop companies and works across so many different industries. So that's something I found extremely valuable for myself.
That's really cool. Because a few years ago, I used to talk about this as a backstage pass. To being an entrepreneur, right? And it truly is. I mean, if you step into it, there's just, you can learn so much by observing
Right.
on these calls, by reaching out to the ventures. And they're all, as you say, in this community, we're all very open to supporting
Yeah.
one another. I mean, we don't obviously want to waste each other's time. Can you tell me all about your business and your story? Because if you had to do that 1,000 times, you'd lose your mind as an
Right.
entrepreneur. But
Exactly.
there's a respect that comes into it that's
Yeah.
really special. So you mentioned investing. Tell us a little bit about
Yes.
how you decided to get into this space.
Oh, well, I right now I'm in deep conversations with Farm from a Box, because what I never knew based on the industry that I'm in is looking at the fun of the base sort of infrastructure of the world, and how that is food. Like that really is. And if people don't have access to food, nothing works. So in really looking at that closely, Brandy's solution with Farm from a Box is just such an incredibly, it's so ahead of its time. It's such a wonderful, you're off grid, you're fully solar, there's a pump, and you have water. There's an app that controls your your
Yeah.
little farm, and alerts you when there's levels that are critically low in the soil, so you can make changes. And it's at in that world, it's at an extremely accessible price point. So Farm from a Box just is such an exciting opportunity for me. So that's one of the investments of both time and capital that I'll be moving forward with. And then B, with the Linker, I mean, superstar.
Yeah.
It's just an incredible bike, and super cool, and changing so many lives for the better. So that's another one that I'm working closely with. And yeah, there's just so much. So it is a bit, SheEO is sort of women sort of pushing and pulling each other forward. Like, it's really, that's totally what it's about. So yeah.
What have you learned?
Oh my gosh, so much.
Yeah.
I've learned truly in terms of scale, I how to scale a company, and how, like, I've really come to understand the complexities that are involved with that. Um, Having been more of a passenger sort of in my career than than an active participant in that process. So just the incredible importance of moving capital to the right companies at the right time has been something really, really interesting for me.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, yeah, and just this sort of idea of starting where you are, using what you have, opening up your network and seeing what beautiful things come. And that's been absolutely transformative for me, for sure.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think a lot lately. I've been thinking an awful lot about rites of passage, and stepping from our old experience of how things are in whatever work environments we're in, and
Right.
kind of walking through the door into
Yeah.
SheEO.World,
Yeah.
and how it can be different when you change those conditions, when you create this, when you have this agreement to be radically generous with one another, and that kind of spirit just creates completely different relationships.
Oh,
Right.
completely.
Yeah.
Completely. It's funny because a lot of people associate innovation with, like, disruption and this whole thing. It's not about disruption. It's literally about moving this sort of old world to the side and creating an entirely new way. And it's just such, relationships are at the forefront of that.
Yeah.
Um,
And
Whereas,
imagination for
yeah,
me, right? Like, I
and
think this
imagine,
is the thing.
totally,
Like, there's
totally.
just the more that things sound like the opposite of what we've done in the past, the more likely I think they're going to be successful in many ways, right? Like, when someone says something to me and I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds kind of rational, I'm like, yeah, it's never going to work.
We're never gonna
Uh,
work.
but when
Yeah,
someone says something like so completely different, you're like, what is this? And so I see
totally.
that a lot at SheEO.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what's happened even just through the pandemic is that it's actually it's progressed it so much quicker. So I think right now we're starting to lose those big chunks of the old world a lot faster, because the especially when it comes to women, we're resourceful, you know, in terms of one another and sort of in pivoting, and to see that, you know, I was reading just recently, the fashion companies have come together and they've signed this fashion pact, and it's all about climate action and stuff. And then I saw the timeline. I don't know if you saw this, Vicki. It was on, did you see that? By 2050.
I know. I'm like, 2050. Are we still going to be on this planet by then? At the pace we're going?
We're giving ourselves a deadline of the apocalypse to get there. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, just looking at the past few months and how we've pivoted all of these companies. And these are serious, you know, significant companies. There's significant capital being moved around here, and we're able to do that so quickly. And just sort of looking at the old world, taking a year to come up with, you know, a strategy that says we're going to take until 2050 to become carbon neutral, not even to become neutral. So, right?
It's amazing. I was on another one of these crazy Zoom calls with the CEO of a $25 billion global corporation. And he was just very clear saying, we are not the answer. It is not going to happen through large corporations. We can't move fast enough. We need to figure out how to get capital into those socially and environmentally sustainable run organizations that are small and medium sized, and networked and scale those out globally. Not through building big, huge entities, but like replicating these models in other countries. And we need a whole different way of looking at it. So I think and thank you very much for helping each of these ventures and helping yourself, right? Like it's a co-created experience for us. Yeah. To create the future. So thank you for being an activator, and thanks for stepping all in.
Oh, I'm in.
Yeah. Really good.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the SheEO.World podcast. If this conversation resonated with you, please share it with a friend and subscribe on your favorite podcast player. If you'd like more information about SheEO, please visit our website at SheEO.World. That's SheEO.World.